Demitha, Razelvarg, bringing them together in Clan Boss. Welcome, I'm the DeadwoodJedi. This is going to be another Raid Shadow Legends video, and we are talking about Demitha and Razelvarg, the Myth Bunny combination here for you guys. And it's always a little bit tricky with Razelvarg tunes. He's very tricky to actually speed tune with, even though the requirements are really low. So it's a very enticing champion to use. I definitely encourage you guys to use him. Just understand the speeds are always going to be a little bit tricky to get perfect because of his passive ability. But that said, this is going to be a really nice combo. And this team comes to me from Sir Henry White. He came to me and said, hey, I got this team I'd like to showcase. And I was like, it's a pretty good team. Let's showcase it. And so that's what we're doing today. Now, this is a variation of this. There are more than a couple different teams that you can do with Razelvarg and Demitha. So it's all about just finding the right speeds and ranges and whatnot. But this one definitely works, as you're going to see here in just a little bit. And it works really, really good, too. So I think you guys are going to like that. So, yeah, let's look at the team setup here of how this is put together, and we'll jump into the run and see what it can do. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one that comes out. And of course, if you enjoyed today's music, we have that SoundStripe link down below in the pinned comment description of this video, and you can use code DeadwoodJedi to save 15%. All right, so first off, you can see there are two different setups based off of affinity. You do have a slightly different spirit setup as opposed to the non-spirit, right? The spirit setup isn't actually that different. Everything is exactly the same except for Demitha. We're going to delay her skills a little bit and change up the order of them. The only thing that we're doing differently right here. Normally, I think this is reversed. If we go to what it looks like normally, you can see here with Demitha, yeah, we're going to actually open with the A3 and then follow with the A2. On this version, we're going to instead, we're actually going to use the A1 for the first two attacks. We do have to manual just a little bit. And then we're going to A2 and then go right into A3 right there. So that's kind of what we're doing here. You can see Demitha's fast, 295 speed, which isn't crazy when you talk about like the Mythfu or any of the other Demitha kind of comps. It's pretty in par, but everybody else is under, I think, 190 speed. From Razelvarg here to Seeker to Gentoro to Underpriest Brogni. Nobody's faster than 190 speed, which is pretty crazy. So it's a pretty sweet little comp. And we can jump right into it. Now, it is full auto on every affinity except for Spirit, but Spirit we do have to manual just a little bit in the beginning here. So A1 right there. Let it run. I need to make sure everybody else uses their skills. And then we follow with one more A1. Click auto. And away we go. It's a very, very impressive kind of team. Now, obviously, does this work? Obviously, this is kind of a... I don't know. It's a pretty awesome team. It's a pretty awesome team. When you're going at really fast speeds, you're able to do some really good stuff. And this team can go at a 2-1 ratio, right? It's going to go at a 2-1 ratio for the whole fight. We're going to have increased attack from not only Seeker, but Brogni as well. Get a lot of damage from Gentoro, obviously, and then Demitha is going to make us unkillable, as well as extend the duration of the buffs that we're getting. Now, part of how this works, you do need a debuff blocker on a 3-turn cooldown, like a Brogni. That is something that is kind of essential to making this work. There's no way around that, unfortunately. So Brogni can be really, really effective for this. Anybody else that kind of fits that bill. The Lorica is probably not somebody I would recommend with her turn meter boost and her passive ability. I don't think she'd work. The speeds on this are really, really tight. We're talking like almost you need the exact speeds that we have in this particular comp to make this work. So just definitely be really careful and always double, triple check in the calculator itself. But it's a really impressive team, does a lot of damage here. And yeah, you guys sit back, enjoy. We'll come back at the end of this run. 117 million. It's not too shabby. This is definitely the best affinity for us also, as everybody's a blue affinity champion. So this is maximum damage, but it's pretty darn good. And the fact that Razzlevarg did more damage than everybody else, I mean, does get 3 attacks. So that definitely helps a little bit, but still pretty impressive. Obviously a very strong team here, and you know, something I would highly consider building. So what's the advantage of a Razzlevarg team versus any other? Well, the speeds are considerably lower for most of the champions, right? So obviously you need Demitha going at a 3-1 ratio. So Demitha's speeds are incredibly fast, but everybody else's are incredibly reasonable, under 200 speed. Getting one champion to 300 speed is way easier than getting like 3 champions to like 260 speed, I found. So for me, I mean, assuming you have the gear to get to those top speeds, I find that to be actually a lot easier to do. So yeah, this is something that's a lot more attainable for a lot of people. Now, the hard part about this tune is it's obviously very speed specific, like very speed specific, and it can be really tricky to find the right numbers. And because of Razzlevarg, and he's just a little bit tricky in that sense. All of his tunes, or most of them, tend to be like that. So that's the part where I would definitely be a little bit careful with it. You know, as far as like, you know, the speeds on these champions, you need to be pretty tight with it. There's not a lot of leeway. I would say that, you know, basically when it comes to like the DPS, and Demitha and Seeker, those speeds are extremely tight. Pretty much exactly what we have here. And so you want to be really careful with that. Now, it's obviously dependent on the true speed too, right? So we're using Razzlevarg's aura, and, you know, we've got, you know, the speeds you kind of see on these champions. So anyway, just the point is check the website. I'll have that link down below, to make sure you get all the speeds exactly right and to follow all the guidance in there. You don't want to deviate too much from that. So that's what I would recommend. But I mean, obviously it's a really nice team, and definitely something I would recommend taking a look at. So those of you that are recently gotten to Demitha, this is another option for you, another tool in your tool shed. So 117 million is not too bad at all. Now, I do want to say there are a couple of variations on this particular comp, right? They all work in very much the same way, where it's like you have your DPS, you have Seeker, you have your debuff blocking champion like a Brogni in your team, Razzlevarg, Demitha. And so like the speeds that we're showing here, they work for sure. They work. We just saw it. But there are some slight variations with it as well. So definitely when you're building this team, you want to look around in the calculator, make sure you have it all set. You can play around with the order, you know, where you have certain champions and stuff going. But generally, these are going to be the speeds that you want. They are also generally very tight, especially Demitha, Seeker, and your DPS. Those speeds are generally kind of tied to each other. So if you change one, you're probably going to have to change the other. You're probably not going to want to vary too far from what is here. Now, the advantages of this comp is it's full auto, except for Spirit Affinity, but that's full auto for Brutal, Nightmare, and Ultra Nightmare. It's affinity friendly for Brutal, Nightmare, and Ultra Nightmare. And obviously it does a lot of damage, so getting a 1 key is not extremely difficult. Of course, you know, you still have those other limitations, right? You still need that block debuff champion, and it does need to be somebody with a you know, a 3-turn duration, right? A 2-turn duration on a 3-turn cooldown. So champions like Brogni or Tatura, right? So that makes it a little bit less easy to find. Those champions aren't really available in the epic and rare category, right? So that's one of the big limitations to this comp. But if you have one of those champions, as you saw, it can be very effective. So something to kind of keep in mind. And of course, if you're not going against Spirit Affinity, you don't necessarily need all that, right? You just need to be able to block the debuff that happens from the stun, or at least have the stun directed towards one of your other champions, depending on which champion you have at what, you know, depending on basically where you have your debuff blocker and your DPS speed wise, because obviously you can kind of swap those spots around. Depending on where you have it, you can direct the stun to one of them, and that would allow you to have actually Demitha cleanse the stun off. So deal with the stun, You don't even need a debuff blocker, really, in truth, right? It's ideal, it helps, but it's not necessary. What you probably want to do is, you know, I mean, you probably want to do it, but what you just need to do is make sure that you can, you know, either have the myth as A2 be able to cleanse that off, or, you know, bring in someone that can block that stun. And you can do that, you know, even if you don't cover everybody for the stun itself. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, right? You can build a team that just doesn't work on spirit. It's not the worst thing in the world. Not my favorite clan boss team, but it's an option for you guys, and options are what we're about. So hopefully this is something that you guys will like and be interested in. I mean, Demitha, everybody just had an opportunity to get her. Razelvarg, amazing champion. 2-1 ratio clan boss seems hard to beat that. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I certainly enjoyed putting this team together. Well, at least showcasing it. The big thanks to Sir Henry White for letting us see it and showcases. And that's all we got. That's all we got, guys. So till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.